What's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. Today you join me, this is probably a scary place for a person to be standing in between two Mustangs pointed at each other, but today you join me with two cars. One's got a V8, one's got a V6. One's white, one's silver, one has stripes, one doesn't. That seems to be where the differences end. So that's what we're gonna look at today. Is this car worth the extra 5, 6, 7 grand you pay for it over the V6? Let's find out. Sorry about the outfit change, guys. Just call me Britney Spears.
Britney Spears needs to hit the gym more.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. Today you join me with my good buddy Cole.
What's up, guys?
And this is his 2016 Mustang V6. So
bring on the hate.
So that's what we're gonna kind of get into today is one, some of the stigma around the V6 Mustang. Is that still, is that still around? And then B, do you need the GT? And you do, but we're gonna get into it as to why you might not. So first things first, Cole, starting off with your car. So what all's done to yours?
So this is a relatively stock car. I haven't done a whole lot to it, other than, windshield banners, and that's 5 horsepower right there.
The sticker is dangerous and inconvenient, but I do love Fig Newtons.
And aside from my Fig Newton sticker, I've got a Roush cold air intake on it. I've got SR Performance lowering springs. Dane actually bought his after mine. He wanted to see how screwed up my car was after I bought him.
He was my guinea pig.
And then I've done a Roush axle back exhaust. So not a whole lot, but I've done a fair bit to make it a little more fun to drive.
Yeah, it definitely looks killer, especially because how long ago did you put these wheels on?
Tuesday.
Tuesday? Yeah, these SVT wheels look killer. I didn't want to try they were going to look on S550, but they look mean. They look really good. Starting off with this comparison, let's just start with the outside of the car, and there really isn't one. I think back in the old days, there used to be a lot more, definitive line between what the V6 and the GT looked like, but that's kind of gone now, especially with this S550 car. Minus, some badging, a front grille, and a different hood with some hood scoops in it with blinkers if you buy a 16. There's really not a whole lot different to it. So, if you're looking to get into the Mustang game and you love the way the Mustang looks, but, for whatever reason you don't want to get the GT, I don't think you need to, especially from a cosmetic standpoint. This car looks as good as my car, and for the fraction of the price. So, cosmetically, if that's your game, if that's what you want, if you want to build a really pretty show car, if you just love the way the Mustang looks, but you're not necessarily focused on speed and power and performance, this is good. Not to say that this car doesn't have good speed, power, and performance. We'll get into that later, but this is a good alternative to the GT. So you obviously had your reason. So why did you go for the V6 over the GT?
Obviously price point's a big factor. 23.5 drive out on this is what I paid with premium wheels, and it's got a couple other little bells and whistles. It's still the base, but honestly, base models aren't the base models they used to be.
Base models are gone now.
They're not stripped down turd buckets anymore. Right.
You get more toys with the premium cars now that are really cool to have, but I said base cars don't exist. You get plenty to keep yourself happy with a base car these days.
But also you're in the same boat. Being under 25, insurance gets you. So and as much as I commute, I needed something with good fuel economy.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an ingot silver 2001 V6 5-speed transmission. Was my first car. So when my dad actually found this car, I was in heaven. I had to have it.
That's cool. This is a good throwback to your old car. That's cool. I appreciate that. So performance-wise, you're dealing with about 305 horsepower. I think it was somewhere around 280 or so pounds of torque, somewhere around there.
Ballpark, yeah.
And so you're not dealing with a small amount of horsepower. And
this is what we used to see out of GTs back in the early 2000s.
I remember when 300 horsepower was the benchmark. And now it's chump change. Now,
might as well go get a Nissan Maxima.
Now 450 horsepower is the benchmark. It's ridiculous. But it still pulls extremely well. Here, look. It makes a good noise too, man. That's one thing I love about V6s is they're different. And don't get me wrong, I love a big growling V8. It's one of the best sounds in the world.
If I could do a V8, I would.
But there's just something interesting about a noise that doesn't make sense. You know, I mean, you look at this car and you think big rally V8, and it's not a bad noise. It's a really good noise actually. It's different. This car just sounds different than a lot of other cars. You know, this car sounds very 350Z-ish. That's kind of always the car I've compared the
FRS.
Yeah. That's kind of always what I've benchmarked the 3.7 around. And you know, even though the 3.7 is dead for 2018, it makes sense. I understand why.
It's gonna be vintage. It's gonna be a collector's.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but you know, I think the stigma behind the rental car Mustang is gone. Now, I mean, obviously, yes. I mean, that stigma exists because a lot of these were rental cars, but that doesn't take away from the fact that they were also really, really good sports cars.
What I would like to see come out of it with the dying of the V6 is I'd like to see Ford, take note, put the 6-cylinder EcoBoost as a replacement.
You know, I've always thought that would be cool, but they can't do it because then I think the line's too blurred between that and the GT.
Yeah.
Because then what do? You know, do you buy a, I mean, unless the GT's got stupid horsepower in the future, but I mean, do you buy a 400 horse, I mean, it'll be close to 400 horsepower V6, twin turbo, or do you buy a 450 horsepower GT?
I mean, there's a lot of guys there's several Cyclone clubs and stuff out there for the V6 guys that guys are going out and turboing these and going and dragging GTRs.
Right, so you gotta be careful with you know, with you know, them doing that, because you put a twin turbo EcoBoost engine in this, and it's probably gonna scoot. So one thing I've noticed about this car, and it could just be all in my brain, but it's a lighter engine up front, and it feels a little lighter. I mean, just when you just turn in, feels a little lighter. It doesn't seem like it wants to understeer as bad. And I said I could just be totally making this up in my head, but
no, I've absolutely felt that too.
And you know, it gives it this car an innate like flickability almost. So I mean, you know, going back to the performance world, I mean, if autocrossing, if you know, just things, you know, I say I'm gonna stick with autocrossing because I feel like on the track a higher horsepower car would probably get around it. But you know, any autocrossing type event, I feel like this car would perform really, really well because you don't need a ton of power. And I said I don't know, I could be 100% wrong, but it feels lighter, dude.
I mean, it's 2 cylinders less.
It is 2 cylinders less. You get the 2-cylinder delete kit. This car impresses me. So you know, I know that, you know, this car is definitely one of the most hated cars in the car world.
Oh, it's a redheaded stepchild of the Mustang world for sure.
It's not the V6 you're used to, and I think the people that, and obviously everybody's got their own opinion, but I think the people that still hate on this car, the new V6s, I've never driven one. You know, it doesn't feel like a piece of crap anymore. I mean, it's a good, you know, it's a good high revving car. It makes a good noise. It makes good power. And you know, I think the biggest problem, and this is with the EcoBoost too, I think the biggest problem with the EcoBoost and the V6 is the GT.
Yeah.
Because that's the car you compare this car to.
It's the sound.
If you just, exactly.
It doesn't make the Mustang noise.
If you just compare this car to itself or other cars in its price range,
absolutely,
then all of a sudden this car becomes very comparable, and I think it becomes, you know, a very high contender in the market. But the second you compare it to the GT, obviously it's gonna, you know, not do as well.
I mean, we're well under 100 horsepower under the GT. And I mean, there's a lot of factors that the GT's just got a lot more to it than these do. Right, power-wise, that this isn't going to compete with sound-wise. And honestly, it does. I love this car. The exhaust does sound a little lawnmower-y. My brother makes fun of me about my weed eater going to start it up. But I mean, from inside the car, it sounds good. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. If you feel like you're the coolest kid on the street, by all means, go for it, and that's what matters. It doesn't matter what the guy on the outside of the car thinks. It matters about who's in the seat and who likes it.
Amen, brother.
So,
amen.
Coming from a guy with the V6 trying to justify it.
But you know what, and it's true. You know, at the end of the day, if you love your car, I used to have a V6 Mustang, and I loved it. As long as you love your car, it doesn't matter. If you drive the V6 and you love it, buy it. You know, if you know, money's in, you know, if money's a little tight and you really want the new Mustang but you can't afford the GT, well, that one's a little up in the air. You know, do you save up for it or do you buy the V6? That one's kind of on you guys. But I would say that if anybody does end up with this car, they're not going to be disappointed. Now, I think eventually again, this is simply due to peer pressure, you're going to want to get a GT. But this is not a car to turn your nose up at. This is a good car. So exhaust-wise, we're dealing with a Roush axle back.
Correct. Everything else is stock.
Everything else is stock. So stock header, stock mid-pipe, Roush axle back. So let's
Ooh, Porsche.
let's just go ahead and do what you guys like me doing anyways. Turns a second. This car pulls good, man.
It definitely gets the mail going.
I'm not gonna tell you guys how fast that was, but you know, for two big fatties in the car like us, this car will scoot. Well, guys, that just about does it for me and Cole. I love your car, sir, and yeah, I mean, you know, there's a couple little different things that obviously the GT is gonna do better just because it is, but you're also paying for it. So if any of you guys are looking to get into a V6 Mustang just because that's the car you're looking to buy, I 100% recommend it. I have not one real complaint about this car. So this about does it for me, Mr. Rogers.
We'll see you, sir.
Thank you for letting me drive your car.
Yeah.
And we will see you guys in the next video. Take care.